Good afternoon, everyone. The topic that we will be discussing today is Chapter 9, Auditing the Revenue Cycle. So this is the learning objectives. After our report, we should be able to understand the operational tasks associated with the revenue cycle under different levels of technology, understand audit objectives related to the revenue cycle, be familiar with revenue cycle control issues related to alternative technologies, Re- recognize the relationship between revenue cycle audit objectives, controls, and the test of controls. Understand the nature of substantive tests in achieving revenue cycle audit objectives, and be familiar with common features and functions of AACL that are used to perform substantive tests. So this is just the overview of the chapter. So this chapter is divided into three main sections. It begins with a review of alternative technologies used in both legacies and modern systems. The second section discusses the revenue cycle audit objectives, controls, and tests of controls that an auditor would perform to gather evidence needed to limit the scope, timing, and the end extent of substantive tests. The last section describes revenue cycle substantive tests in relation to audit objectives. This will be reported later on. Let's now go to revenue cycle activities and technology. First is a sale order system that um, emphasizes batch processing and uses sequential files for storing accounting records. This is an example of an early legacy type system. Sinasabi dyan na yung sales order system, ginagamitan siya ng batch processing, also ng sequential files para sa pag-store ng accounting records. Ayan ay isang example ng early legacy type system. What is early legacy type system? This is an outdated computing software or hardware that is still in use. Itong approach na to ay nagka-characterize ng era of data ownership na yung mga files is exclusively for single users. Since this is for single use, this can result in data redundancy and data obsolescence or out-of-date data. Although it's old, ginagamit pa din tong system na to since they are continuously adding value sa organization. It was expected that the legacy system will replace before matapos ang 20th century, but organizations just repair and modify the system so they can still use the system for a long time. Second, we review the operational feature of a cash receipt system that employs batch processing and uses different access file. This configuration is found both modern system and late-era legacy system. Second, we will review the operational feature ng cash receipt systems that uses batch processing and direct access files. Nakikita ito pareha sa modern system and late-era legacy system. Direct access file approach offers operational advantages sa sequential file processing at it permits unlimited data searching. The final example depicts a modern real-time sales order and cash receipt system that uses database technology. Modern system design embraces re-engineering to radically reshape business processes and workflow. So, yung last example naman ay nagpapakita ng modern real-time sales order at ang cash receipt system na gumagamit ng database technology. So, itong modern system uses re-engineering to reshape or adjust the business process and workflow. Ang goal ng re-engineering is to minimize yung cost by identifying at i-remove yung non-value added task. Non-value added task is Ito yung mga activity na nagko-consume ng resources pero di siya nag-a-add ng value sa products at services ng business. So, the engineering works by replacing traditional procedures ng innovative or unconventional and iba pa na procedure sa mga nag-exist before. So, we should acknowledge that the space limitation forbids us to see a review na lahat ng possible configurations. So yung objective niyan is to present examples with different approaches na nakikita sa practice and for experimentation of controls. Now we go to the batch processing using sequential files in a manual procedure. So, figure 9.1 is just an illustration of an automated sale order system na gumagamit ng batch processing at sequential files. I will explain that later on. First is obtaining and recording the customer's order. The sales process begins in the sales department with the receipt of a customer order indicating the type and quantity of a merchandise being requested. So, it says that yung sales process ay nagsisimula pag natanggap na ng sales department yung order receipt ng customer. Nakalagay sa receipt is yung type at quantity ng order. At this point, yung orders may not be in a standard format at pwede din siya na hindi naka-physical document. Kasi we all know naman na yung orders ay pwede siya through email, phone call, or sa mga physical store. Sabi din dyan na if yung customer ay a business entity, yung order ay copy ng customer's purchase order. Okay. So the primary objective of this step is to ensure that relevant data about the transaction are transcribed into a standard format. The document prepared in this procedure is the sales order. So yung primary objective is to ensure that yung data transaction ay nakatranscribe siya sa standard format ng company or organization that can be processed by the selling entity system. Yung tawag sa document na yan is the sales order. So the sales order captures such vital information. Naglalaman yung sales order ng name at address ng customer, their account number, yung name, number or code, at description ng order, kung ilan, and the unit prices ng item, and financial info like taxes, discounts, and freight charges. So, sa manual system, marami tayong copy ng sales order. Each of it has different purposes. Sa actual system naman, yung sales order copies ay minsan by numbered or color-coded that nagre-represent ng purpose nila. So after preparing the sales order, the sales clerk files one copy of it in the customer open order file for future references. So after preparing the sales order, your sales clerk will file one copy ng sale order sa customer open order file for future references. The process of completing the order might take days or weeks, while the customers waiting for them, they can contact the supplier for updates. To facilitate the inquiries, the open file ng customer ay naka-arrange alphabetically. Yung name ng customer is hindi siya primary key but can be a secondary key. So if the customer doesn't know their account number, the clerk can still find their sales order and answer some inquiries. Okay, before I go there, ito yung file na yan. So as you can see, sabi kanina na nagsisimula siya sa order ng isang customer. And then, let me just go back. Ayan. Nagsisimula siya sa order ng customer. And then, mag-receive na yun ng sales department and then magpe-prepare na sila ng sales order. Yan. And then, sinabi ko din kanina na there's a different copies ng sales order. Depende sa purpose nila. So, ayun yun. That is the part. Okay, let's go now. Um, okay, approving credit. So the next step in the revenue cycle is transaction authorization, which involves verifying the customer's credit worthiness. So yung next process naman is transaction authorization. This is where we verify yung credit worthiness ng customer. Basically, this is when a customer must go through to be eligible, especially to new customers. However, once a credit limit is set, yung pag-checking sa credit sa mga succeeding sales is usually just making sure lang na nandun ka within the credit limit. Yung credit authorization ay dadalhin sa dadalhin sa credit department para ma-approve. Then, after nun, i-release na yung ibang copy ng sales order sa iba't ibang department. Yung credit copy naman ay ipa-file sa open order file ng customer until matapos yung transaction. Ito yung part na yan. As you can see, yung credit copy, then mag-check sila ng credit if you are eligible, and then the credit copy will be filed. Okay. Now, next slide. Let's now go to processing shipping orders. So the sales department sends the stock release, also called the picking ticket, copy of the sales order to the warehouse. So, di ba I mentioned kanina na after approval, marirelease na yung different copies ng sales order sa iba't ibang department. So, dito, sa processing shipping order, yung sales department ay magsasend sa warehouse ng stock release copy or ng picking ticket. Yung stock release copy ay po-provide ng formal authorization sa warehouse clerk na magre-release na sila ng order. After makuha yung stock, yung warehouse clerk will update the stock release copy para ma-indicate na yung order ay complete at accurate na. Okay, so yung isa sa mga copy ng stock release is pupunta din siya sa kasama ng goods sa shipping department, and then yung isa naman is ipa-file sa warehouse para makapag-provide sila ng record ng transaction for future references. Okay. I already explained that one and also this one. So the clerk then adjusts the stock records to reflect the reduction in inventory. Ayun, pretty simple. So, yung clerk, i-adjust yung stock records para reflect yung reduction sa inventory. Before the arrival of the goods and the stock release copy, the shipping department receives the packing slip and shipping notice copies from the sales department. So, bago daw dumating yung goods at stock release copy, makaka-receive yung shipping department ng copy ng packing slip at shipping notice copies galing sa sales department. Magkakasama yung packing slip at yung order pag dadating sa customer. It's either na nasa loob ng container kasama ng goods or nasa labas. Yung shipping notice naman will inform the billing department na yung order ng customer ay complete na at na-ship na. Yung shipping notice ay naglalaman siya ng mga shipping date, items, at kung ilan, etc. Upon receiving the goods from the warehouse, i-check ng shipping clerk kung tama na ba lahat ng order. This is important kasi this is their last opportunity to check for errors. After that, the clerk will pack everything and prepare sa billing of lading. Billing of lading is a detailed list of shipment of goods and a contract between carrier and the shipper. Yeah, explained all of that. Okay. Next. So, After ma-transfer of custody to the carrier, yung shipping clerk will record the shipment into the shipping log, then sends the stock release document and the shipping notice to the billing department as proof of shipment. And lastly, files one copy each of the bill of lading and the shipping document. We now go to the automated procedure naman ng batch processing using sequential files. Okay, so key punch or data entry. The process begins with the arrival of batches of shipping notice from the shipping department. These documents are copies of the sales order that contains accurate information about the number of units shipped and information about the carrier. So this starts with the arrival of batches of shipping notice galing sa shipping department. Itong documents na to ay copy siya ng sales order na naglalaman ng accurate info about sa kung ilang unit yung na-ship at sa carrier. Then, yung data processing clerk, i-convert niya yung notices into a magnetic media para ma-produce ng transaction file ng sales order. Magnetic media, ito yung parang mga floppy diskette, hard drives, etc. You get the point. Going back, this is continual. Throughout the day, yung clerk ay nagre-receive at nagko-convert ng mga batch ng notices into magnetic media. This will result into batches of sales order and each batch will be calculated para malaman yung batch control totals. So, next is edit run. This program validates transactions by testing each record for the existence of clerical or logical errors. These are corrected by an authorized person and are submitted for processing with the next day's business. The edit program recalculates the batch control totals to reflect changes due to the removal of error records. Itong edit run naman, ayan yung pag-validate ng mga transaction to see if may errors ba. Ginagamitan niya ng iba't ibang test like field check, limit test, range test, etc. Like yung mga na-mention ko sa last na report. If maalala nyo in the previous chapters, sabi na yung detected errors are inaalis at nilalagay sa separate error file. After nyan, i-correct yan ng authorized person at i-submit ulit for processing. Itong edit program, dire-recalculate niya yung batch control totals para ma-adjust kasi natanggal na yung mga errors. Sort run. So the sort run physically arranges the sales order transaction file sequentially by count number, which is one of its secondary keys. So after edit run, we have sort run. Para ma-process ang sequential transaction file, dapat ilalagay siya kaparehas sa updating na master file. Since yung accounts receivable yung unang master file na ina-update, yung sort run ina-arrange na yung sales order transaction by account number. Ayun lang siya. So next is the AR update and billing run. So the AR update program goes to accounts receivable by sequentially matching the accounts number key in each sales order record with the corresponding record in the AR SVB master file. So itong process na to ay gumagawa siya ng panibagong AR SVB master file that accommodates all changes sa accounts ng customer. Each sales transaction record na napoprocess ay na-add sa sales journal file. After that, isa-summarize yan, then magkakaroon na ng entry sa journal voucher file para mag-reflect yung total sales and i-increase yung accounts receivable. To spread the billing tasks evenly over the month, some firms employ cycle billing of their customers. To spread the billing tasks evenly over the month, may mga firms na gumagamit ng cycle billing. Yung cycle billing is This is when instead of billing all of your accounts at once or sa iisang date, you are invoicing different customers based sa schedule. Yeah, per schedule na siya. Instead na iisang araw na lang yung gagawin. As you can see here, dito sa parang figure. So, this is the original na accounts receivable master file. And then, once na yung sales order transaction file is dumating, i-adjust na yan. And then, magkakaroon na siya ng bagong accounts receivable master file with updated invoices or dates, etc. So, ito, never siya nababago or never siya nagagalaw. Magkakaroon lang ng bagong master file. Okay. Next is sort and inventory update runs. The sort program sorts the sales order file on the other secondary key or the inventory number. So this is very simple. Yung sort program ay nagsasort siya ng sales order file by inventory number, which is another secondary key. Yung inventory update program naman ay binabawasan niya yung quantity on hand field if kung may mga new sales order record. So this means that another master file is created. So the program compares values of the quantity on hand in the recorder point fields to identify inventory items that need to be replenished. So this program also helps with identifying inventory items na kailangan ma-refill. That info will be sent sa purchasing depth, then a journal voucher is prepared para makita yung cost of goods sold at reduction sa inventory. So ito, as you can see, halos parehas lang yan kanina sa AR update. Bale, ito yung original na master file, and then pagka nagkaroon na sila sa order transaction file, i-update niya lang yung mga dito, then magkakaroon na ng bagong inventory master file. Again, hindi yan nababago. Magkakaroon lang talaga or magagawa lang talaga ng bagong master file. Okay. So we now go to general ledger update run. So the result in the recreation of the entire general ledger every time a batch of transaction is processed, the general ledger system accesses the journal voucher file. So itong file na to ay naglalaman ng journal voucher that shows the whole day's transaction ng organization. Yung vouchers ay nakasort by the general ledger account number and posted to general ledger. This will create a new general ledger. Yung end of the day procedure will generate a number of management reports. Pwede ito sales summaries, inventory status reports, etc. Yung quality management naman helps the management sa pag-monitor ng operations to make sure that everything is flawlessly working and in place. Okay, so this is the batch cash receipt system with direct access file. So this is the computer-based cash receipt system. I'll explain this while I explain the other things. Okay. So we have 4 parts. So first is the mailroom. The mailroom separates the check and remittance advices and prepares a remittance list. So balik tayo. So sa mailroom, nahihiwala yung checks at remittance advices at dito din magpe-prepare ng remittance list. Yung checks at one copy ng remittance list will go to the cash receipts department, which is here. Here. And yung remittance advices naman and the copy of the remittance list will go to the AR dep, which is ito at ito. Yan. Pupunta siya sa AR dep. Okay. Let's go to cash receipts department. The cash receipts clerk reconciles the checks and the remittance list. So, the cash receipts clerk ay nagre-reconcile ng checks at remittance list at nagpe-prepare ng deposit slips. Via terminal, si clerk ay gagawa ng digital voucher na total cash received. Then, they will file both remittance list and a copy of a deposit slip. Then, eventually, this will be deposited sa bank. Okay, forgot. So, ayan, yung check remittance list. And then, nire-record siya. Tapos, sabi dyan, via terminal, gagawa siya ng journal voucher ng total cash receipts, which is dito na siya mapupunta sa data processing. Pero dito muna tayo mag-focus. So, ayun. So, after that, ipa-file na both remittance list tsaka a copy ng deposit slip sa, ipa-file na siya dito. And then, at the end of the day, both of them will be deposited sa bank. Yung money. Next, accounts receivable department. The AR collects, receives, and reconciles the remittance advices and remittance list. After receiving the remittance advices and the remittance list, the clerk will reconcile them via terminal. Gagawa yung clerk ng cash receipt transaction file based sa remittance advices and both the remittance advices and lists will be filed. This will be ito. Pupunta na siya dyan and then kakura sila dito. Parehas. They will go to the data processing. And also, it will go katulad din dito, ipa-file na sila both remittance list and the remittance advice. Last is data processing department. The batch program reconcile the journal voucher with the transaction file of cash receipts and updates the ARSUB and the general ledger control accounts. Yung batch control will reconcile both the journal voucher at transaction file ng cash receipts. Then, mag-update ng ARSUB at general ledger. Control accounts. Okay. So, the system then produces a transaction listing na i-reconcile against sa remittance list ng AR clerk. Ayan. Yes, that is all. Thank you.